Hey guys, Minty here with a bit of a casual commentary. I'm here with AudeoBeem.
What's up?
What's up? Yeah, and we're just going to be doing a bit of a... We're going to be doing an MG or a couple... Are you playing... What are you even going to play? Pyro? Okay then.
Pyro, but like not a scummy loadout.
Right. Okay, so we're just going to be doing a bit of an MGE while we just talk about whatever basically. But yeah, like sort of something we've been talking about recently is a bit of a big divide between the casual and competitive communities. You know the deal. Casual Jose Gonzalez 2005 says, this game is all about fun and, you know, this game shouldn't be made more competitive. I want everything to stay fun and enjoyable, you fucking try hard. And then Mr. Comp Player is all like, oh no, we need to stick to the fucking meta. Everything needs to be balanced and, you know, grey brow and to the meta and to the letter. The meta letter. That's actually good, the meta letter.
That is good.
And,
you
know, like, oh, you need to just get good at the game, you fucking pansy. You know, and
I don't know, I feel like a common misconception with the comp scene, too, is that not a lot of people realize that the people in the community comp scene tend to be, I want to say, almost less understanding than the people you meet in Valve comp. And I feel like that kind of depends on what game you get in, and I know that's really situational, but there are some games that you get in and it's like, oh hey, these people aren't that bad, right? Like team comp isn't that complicated.
Yeah.
But then there are some games that you get in and people, if you breathe the wrong way, you're gone. Like, leave. And I've seen some people in UGC do that, but some comp teams are kind of lenient in the sense of if like an emergency comes up where you can't make it to like a skirmish, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Honestly, from what I've seen, like, it gets less toxic the higher up you go in comp. Like, the steel teams, those are often some of the worst. Like, Jesus Christ, open teams or steel teams, those are some of the most toxic. But like, the genuinely really good players and like the sort of like the gold and plat teams, those are where you get like the really respectable and like just general great people.
Yeah, like, I know one of my friends from, it's from somebody on Just Play that I know them, but I don't know. Anyway, somebody that I have spoken to previously knows somebody that used to play on a plat team, and he's just a fucking, like, he doesn't even care. He's just like a sweetheart. He's just like, hey.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, it's okay that I'm, you know, kind of kicking your ass, but here's what you can do to maybe prevent that.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't rub it in your face, too, which I really like, because I feel like a lot of Steel players do that. They're like, ha, I have one point more than you.
Yeah, your typical MGE that you're going to see on servers like this is going to be the kind of player that, you know, whoa. It's going to be the kind of player that, you know, dominates you to hell, but rather than offer you some constructive criticism, which is a great thing this mode can be for, they just, you know, rub it in your face. Even though there's really not that much skill to dominating someone who's clearly of a lot less skill value than you are. It's just kind of sad, honestly.
Yeah, hang on just a second. I know we're recording, but I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah. I'll just pause.
But yeah, no, the line between people being full on, I'm just gonna say it, assholes, and the people who are actually going to give you, you know, advice in the sense of, hey, maybe when you strafe, try this, or when you reflect, do this, or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are usually the people that have at least, and this is like the least that I've seen, is if you ever meet somebody with like 10,000 hours, chances are they're not gonna be an ass to you.
Yeah.
That was half unintentional and very lovely.
Fucking amazing.
Yes. What? What?
I feel dirty for that one.
Oh my god, I totally hit you with that melee. That was janky. Wow, thank you, Valve. But, yeah, I don't know, that's like, I've been invited to, like, a basic steel team before, and it's not that I wouldn't want to do it, it's just, the team that I got invited to, they follow the meta so hardcore, and I'm not saying this because it's biased because I main Pyro, that's not the fucking thing that I'm talking about. I'm just saying, if you didn't follow the meta, they, very disrespectful. They're like, oh, you main Pyro, you're fucking bad, and it's like, no, it's just... it's a game where you can pick whatever class you want. I shouldn't have to be restricted to fucking 3.
Are you just afraid to WM1 me?
Yes, because it's scummy. Like, it's like, it's such a bad tactic. I don't mind, like, puffin, because now that it's been kind of, not really nerfed, but changed, it's not as bad.
Okay, now I'm gonna try... fuck it, I'll try demo. Okay.
Alright, you're gonna go demo, I'm gonna go scout. But yeah, it's like, the big thing with me that I don't understand is why so many comp teams are, too close-minded to the whole off-class thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just use Pyro as an example, but I'll also talk about kind of Spy a little bit. Spy is a very, you know what, no, scratch that, Engineer. Engie is like the top-notch off-class, because, you know, in comp, it's not considered scumbaggy, it's just kind of an easy win. If you find a decent place for a sentry, you can pretty much wipe out a lot of people, if not the entire Sixes team.
Yeah.
And I think that's neat in a sense, because going back on what you were talking about, that forces people to think like, okay, so if I'm playing casual, or if I'm in a pub, and there would be a random person who would put a sentry here, how do I evade it? Yeah. And then you put that into a competitive scene, and that becomes a skill. That becomes a true skill. And so many people are like, oh, well, if you build a sentry, you're just an ass. Not necessarily. That can train... That's like, I know how to... As a scout, I've been learning just recently how to flank minis and take them out with 2 shots from the stock scatter.
A sentry really isn't the hardest fucking thing to destroy in this game. You're looking at a stationary object with, like, soldier health at best. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, people's argument is, oh, well, it targets onto you. Yeah, but have you... And I know 2 different games. I know, super ugly opinion here. Have you ever played Overwatch? Like, do you know... Again, ugly opinion. I'm just saying a lot of the in-game stuff with that kind of targets onto you. But people figure that out. You know, it's not the same game. I don't mean that. But it's a similar concept. It's locking onto you, but... The game makers wouldn't make it so totally impossible that one person could go in off-class and steal the entire game. They just wouldn't do that. Yeah. There's always a counter to everything. And I think a big thing, too, that a lot of Pyros don't realize is you can reflect sentry rockets.
Oh my god, reflecting, because it's so easy to time when they come out as well.
Yeah, I know, because it's like I don't remember how many ticks, like, in the hammer engine it is, but it's relatively after a level 3 spots you. I think
it's basically right after a level 3 fucking spots you.
Yeah, the little ding sound that comes up and then the rocket shoot, you can immediately just be like, okay, so reflect it. And if you have enough distance, you can deal damage to either the sentry itself or, if you're lucky enough, the engineer.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, you can even deal damage to the team with sentry rockets.
Yeah.
And that's...
killing like a medic with sentry rockets.
Yeah. I think the weirdest thing I've ever done is I've reflected an Engie's rockets who had a professional kill streak stock wrench. And it was like, AudeoBeem is on a rampage. And I'm like, no.
I don't even have a kill streak equipped, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly, but it counts, which is not broken, but... I guess if it doesn't really change how many points you get, it doesn't really matter. But, I don't know. It's like, I think, and I'm not blaming the people at UGC when I say this, so, like, it's anybody that, like, is in UGC or may even work for them. This isn't against them personally. I don't mean UGC as a whole. I just mean part of the UGC community is, wow, really cutthroat.
I mean, I haven't spent like dozens and dozens of time in comp. I've been on about two or three teams. Last time I played properly was well, the only official season I've played through and through is ETF2L season 13 just gone. That was with an open team. I haven't played any other team. I haven't played any other official seasons, but I've played in quite a lot of scrims and that amount. So I'm not really seasoned per se, but like. I've played enough to know what typical steel and open teams are like, and yeah, it's Jesus Christ. And then compare that to the typical plat player I sometimes MG with, or like gold or whatever, and they're just in general a lot fucking nicer. Like people like Jedi Flame Master, like initially, people thought, like, when people in my Discord thought, like, oh, is he gonna like talk shit to you because you don't think his video is good or whatever people thought about what I was saying. We MG'd. He destroyed me as Pyro, but he really, he gave good advice and shit. Like,
yeah,
you know, because like on the casual side, there's like you said, like there's a really negative preconception about what a typical comp player is like, just because, you know, of an average majority. You know, your typical casual player is the whiny idiot who doesn't know what they're doing but blames the team. But your average comp player is the guy that is so full of himself and thinks the meta is Jesus. You know, fucking maintain the status quo.
Yeah, really. Another thing too that I don't really think is, I don't want to say unfair because this is a huge opinionated topic, but a lot of banned weapons shouldn't be. I'm not saying that all of them shouldn't be, because there are some banned weapons that definitely shouldn't be used in comp for a very abrupt, abusive reasons.
Yeah.
But that's like, we were talking about this earlier, the fucking Dragon's Fury. Yeah. And it's like, what's the point of that?
I can sort of maybe see sixes, but even then, Pyro is still like a really bad roamer, like compared to Scout and Soldier. And the weapon finally gives him a fighting chance, and it's bad. I don't know, it really confuses me, like, people complain that Pyro is like a crappy specialist, and yet when he's given stuff that gives him a fighting chance, but not one that's overpowered, because frankly it's still crap to fight a soldier with a Dragon's Fury. A gunboat soldier, or a fucking shotgun soldier anyway, will just destroy a Dragon's Fury Pyro before he can even get anywhere close. And Scout, don't even fucking question it. And the instant Pyro's given something that could give it even a bit of a fighting chance, it's banned. And I mean, I really don't know. Yeah, it's really confusing, honestly.
I don't know.
Commander Crockett and me were talking about the reserve shooter being banned, for example, because it can interrupt, like, you know, people who are in midair. Isn't that kind of the whole thing it was built for?
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly the original reserve shooter's concept was, and I know a lot of people kind of shat on the reserve shooter because it was for the Pyro, but now, obviously post Jungle Inferno, that argument's so painstakingly invalid. Like, oh, the Pyro shouldn't have to use it. Fuck that.
The new Air Blast alone would have made it so much, like, less painful to complain about. Because the new Air Blast already actually takes you to aim a bit upwards or downwards at them to even send them off. Yeah,
exactly. And then so to have the weapon that is, you know, kind of utilized in that field, I guess, is not overpowered by any means. And the fact that it's banned in comp is kind of shit. Like, really, I think it's just people being salty.
I sort of get it, but like, if someone's able to keep up with you with hit scan when you're flying through the air, I don't know.
Reward them a bit.
Yeah,
like,
deserved. I mean, a normal shotgun hit's gonna fucking deal knockback to you anyway. I get the mini crits do more, but like, look, mate, that's the whole point. Like, it's a weapon designed to counter anti-air.
Yeah. Like, here, hold on just a second. You can go ahead and kill me if you want to. But, that's like a big thing with, I think it's the soldier having the reserve shooter is kind of what you just said. It's like, oh, it's too easy. It's situationally maybe. But
soldier, it takes a lot more skill because you can't just easily air blast them up. I'll even say that as much as I don't think old Puff and Sting was overpowered, the reserve shooter for Pyro, like, they should split it into two weapons, simple as. They could have just done that. But you know, then there's the whole problem of people who might only own like collector's reserve shooters and they want to use it on Pyro, not Soldier, and then they get really pissed off about it. There's always going to be that problem. It's like why you can't just delete. Ooh, created. Ah, man.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of concepts and weapons should be divided.
Yeah.
There's too many like weapons that have, I'm not going to say confusing stats, but people always bitch about them being underpowered or overpowered. And if Valve would just take those concepts and split them into different weapons, it wouldn't even matter. It would just be like, okay, well, then if you don't like it, fucking use something else.
Yeah.
But you know, like an example with the reserve shooter, going back on that for a minute. You know, if they had, let's say they had a specific reserve shooter for the Pyro, and the stats were something along the lines of airborne enemy gets crits, but situationally, I know they wouldn't do this specific of a stat, but I'm just saying, situationally speaking,
Yeah.
If somebody was air blasted up in the air, that could be, you know, like they would be granted crits, but if somebody was airborne previously, it doesn't grant those crits.
Yeah.
You know, so that rewards the Pyro for getting them up in the air, especially with, again, going back on the whole post Jungle Inferno air blast.
Yeah.
You know, that's complicated. It's very complicated. And so to have that concept of, oh, well, if a soldier rocket jumps, I can't get that crit. But if I get him up in the air, I get to be rewarded. And people could argue that that's overpowered as hell,
Yeah.
but that giant nerf of not having that class be airborne previously shuts that down immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then going back on, it's like, I know I've said this before, I really, really, really like the old concept of the panic attack, but I think it was done wrong.
Yeah, the beggar's shotgun.
Yeah, exactly. They took... I don't want to say they ran out of ideas, but they took something that they already had and put it into another weapon.
Yeah.
The concept was already there, but with the beggar's bazooka that I know of, unless this has changed, I don't play soldier a lot, so if it has changed, my bad. But I don't think you can hold them in the barrel without them coming out or killing you or doing self-damage. And I think that was a neat concept. Being able to kind of house bullets and release them kind of whenever. But I think the, I don't know. I think the burst should have been kind of utilized differently. That's like you had to hold down M1. And I don't think that's how they should have done that. I think the ideal panic attack would have been, well, I'm talking pre-Jungle Inferno, would have been like max clip size 3 so that you couldn't like barf bullets all over people, and doesn't grant random crits. And then people could be like, oh, well, that's underpowered. Okay, but it's better than the fucking original, not the rocket launcher. I mean the original concept of the fucking panic attack.
Yeah.
You could just sneak up behind people and just, and they were done. It countered all classes. It countered an overheal heavy, which that to me was the overpowered part. You know, if a heavy's being healed by a meta beam or has sandwich, there should be no way in hell that one shotgun, I can almost see a rocket launcher, right? But a shotgun immediately just wiping him out. That to me
that's a bit fucking overkill.
Yeah, it is a lot overkill.
Health shouldn't go that quickly unless you're a pick
No,
class.
exactly. And that's why I think too that they should really split the concepts of a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
That's like something that I think's hilarious is the gunslinger, which is a completely different topic, so I won't steer too much on it. But it doesn't grant random crits unless you land it, unless you are kind of, because you can't get that random crit unless you hit those 3 melees, which is good. Like that's not a bad thing. And people say that that's underpowered, and it's not underpowered. It rewards you for, I don't want to say being a good player, because it's not hard to land 3 melees.
And a good player wouldn't use a melee like a melee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, too, you know, that just makes engineer, which seems like a very breakable class, being able to counter the only tank class, which obviously being heavy. So yeah, that's not too bad. But the whole it not having random crits thing is, I don't know. I don't think it's a terrible concept. But if they split it into 2 different weapons, it would be one of those terms where people would be like, oh, just fucking put him back together. It was better. People would just bitch either way.
Yeah. But yeah, fucking hell, like, just in general, like, we're never really going to see much cohesion between the casual and comp communities, because they're either going to be like, oh, this game is, we don't want this game to become competitive, I don't like change. I mean, for this game to stay relevant, it needs to be more like I don't want to say it has to be completely competitive, because it doesn't. I mean, TF2 already does a great job of being both casual and competitive at the same time. In a typical 12v12 game, you can enjoy a good balanced game of TF2 and still have those wacky, insane moments in casual play. That's never fucking changed.
No.
But, like, comp mode, I mean, they did say that they were pushing those changes back because they weren't satisfied, but, like, comp so far being dead and full of hackers is so saddening, but I can kind of appreciate them choosing 60 specifically. Do you mind going soldier?
Sure.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's, oh god, I don't know, that's like something, very, very fucking, like, off the wall happened, to me just recently. I played a Valve comp game, and it was good. People had team composition. I was even playing Pyro.
Wow.
And the fact that that happened, like, threw me back. I was like, okay, what the fuck happened to my game? Like, last time I checked, that's not how anything works. But, you know, people were like, hey, could you switch off of Pyro? If not, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. I've never been asked. It's always switch, you gay, lol. But, you know, I don't know. I think situationally it depends with the people. You know, and going back on the whole topic of in the comp scene, if you go to, like, Platinum or Gold, people there are just fucking sweethearts. They're like, hey, it's okay. That was my own fault. You know, they're like, I'm not saying that you're bad, but, you know, to improve, you could probably... That was actually good. You know, to improve, you could do this, you know. And then people in Steel are like, you're bad, get over it. Yeah. It's like, fucking thank you for the advice.
Yeah, then there's like TF2 Center.
Oh my god.
Supposed to be like, basically the only entryway for casual players to learn comp, like...
No.
Reliably. And, you know, shit like... Oh, you must have a minimum of 50 lobbies to play Medic, for example, or hell, if you're not playing anything that's like Pyro, or just basically a class that's not well appreciated when you've got a low lobby count. If you just got a low lobby count at all, they're gonna treat you like a fucking scrub piece of shit. And, you know, the whole point is it's supposed to be there to be accessible for beginners who want to learn comp. If you want to stroke your, you know, experienced comp dick, why don't you go play, like, some high-ranking scrims rather than, like, an unorganized comp pub, basically?
And another thing that's a fucking joke to me is the mumble required.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean that against Mumble, the program. I'm not saying, like, I'm shitting on it itself. I just mean the fact that you have got to be in something other than the in-game voice chat to communicate with your team is... stupid because that concept
actually does it.
Yeah, the concept is already in the game. Utilize it. Like, oh, I can click a button, but if I don't, then my team can't hear me. No.
I can sort of see the problem because, like, compared to these low latency programs, TF2's voice codec is like horrible. But the thing is, they say, oh, you need mumble, but barely anyone ever uses it. The lobbies I've played. Barely anyone ever connects to the fucking mumble chat. So there's barely any communication. People don't really put in that much of an effort to actually make a valid comp experience. It's just a glorified pub, basically.
It is a glorified pub. That's like, a big thing too that I don't really understand is, okay, big example, I guess, and I've run into this many times, especially maining a specialist class. A lot of people are super biased, right? Because stereotypes.
Yeah.
You know?
They take Sam Smith's stereotype seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, you know, the whole Pyro stereotype is WM1 with 0 skill. They don't know how to, you know, remove sappers from buildings. They don't know how to utilize their shotgun or distort shot. All they know how to do is click a button.
Yeah.
And sure, that argument could be valid in a small sense if new players genuinely, and this is not to call them stupid, I just mean if new players actually don't know what they're doing. You know, because the fucking deep-ass learning curve.
Yeah.
But that's not their fault. Yeah, that's not their fault. Again, I'm not calling them stupid because they don't know. It's just if they're learning the game, okay, yeah, but that's not a stereotype for people that have, I'm just going to say, over 500 hours in the game. You know, because then at that point, you know the ins and outs of each class. And if you don't, if you've already stuck to just one class, what the fuck are you doing? Like, if you have over 500 hours and you've got like 499 on heavy, and like not even a full hour divided between the other 8, should you really be even playing TF2?
I don't.
Like, that's
don't get me
very.
wrong. Mastering a class takes like hundreds upon thousands of hours depending on the class. Even
Of
like,
course. But
even I will say that Pyro is lower on the skill ladder compared to the others, but even he takes hundreds of hours to actually master. Like, you can go ahead and say, oh, Pyro's easy to play, but you know, once you go past M1 spearing and learn proper like pinpoint reflecting, fucking frame perfect flare punching, all that biz.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And you know, the big thing too, a really common, very, very common thing that Pyro mains don't do is the extinguishing teammates.
Yeah.
I
Even
see
though it's
that
literally encouraged now.
Yeah, I see that everywhere. I see Pyro mains, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm the best, because I'm not. I'm just saying, as somebody who mains a specialist class, I see this a bunch. You know, a lot of Pyro mains will be like, oh, well, I don't know how to. Any flamethrower that you have, with the exception of the flog, can extinguish teammates.
Yeah.
And then that concept branches on being able to reflect.
Yeah.
You know? Which is, like you said, it's one of those things that Pyro is definitely, I agree with the statement of, it's not impossible, right? Like, I would say probably one of the highest tier situational classes to learn is either Demo or Soldier, just because of the way that people move around and making sure that if you're a Demo, your sticky traps aren't too spammy and they're in the right places, and if you're Soldier, you know, making sure that your rockets either land at their feet or wherever they're moving to. But Pyro definitely takes enough time to learn outside of the stereotypes instead of just spamming 2 buttons. If you really want to become a very good, if you want to take Pyro to a whole new level and make him playable, you definitely have to put in the hours to want to do that. And another big thing too, that's like, I always use the Maul for melee. And people say like, oh, well, the Power Jack is better. Of course, because it gives you a speed boost. But I'm willing to sacrifice slight mobility for helping out the entire team. If an engineer's building gets sapped, all it takes is 1 smack. Any of the sappers.
Yeah.
Any of them. And there's not a lot of sappers for the Spy. It just takes 1. So let's say an NG on our team has a Jag, he's low health, and a Spy sapping his building. That takes 3 whacks, and in that time span, the Spy could not only kill the engineer, but get the building down. If I can flank behind that Spy and either puff and sting, or not be, you know, as douchey as I like to be, just take the fucking sapper away, and then the sentry can pick him off. And, you know, people are like, yeah, well, that's, you know, it's not a bad gameplay style, but that doesn't make you a fucking godsend. I don't know. In some teams, that kind of does.
Yeah. I don't know, like, the specialist classes that don't get much love whatsoever, like, no matter how great you play, you're not often going to get a lot of praise from, like, the people who are, you know, super frag-heavy soldier mains who just want to go for that sick mid-rollout. Like, you know, fucking, like, they want to emulate people like Vanny and Mela.
Well, another thing, too, is people like Mela, I mean, shit, do you know how long the fucking, like, game, how long have you been game, you know? Like, significantly longer than most people.
Yeah.
And, you know, people like that take it kind of more or less as a lifestyle. You know, of course they're gonna be good. They've got 10, 20, hell, even 30,000 hours on the game. Of course they're gonna be good.
Yeah.
And then people that are like, oh, you're bad because you can't do this. And then they're talking to somebody that's got, I don't know, 1 to 2K hours. No shit, they're not going to be as good. I mean, I'm not saying that all players that have under 1,000 hours are bad. I don't mean that. I just mean the people that have the quadruple and, you know, the
sometimes the quintuple.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's like, fuck, obviously they're going to be better, you know? And that's not to say that they're better as a person, but game sense, fuck, they clearly know everything there is to know about the game. And so, obviously, you know, the countering, the reflect times as Pyro, where to shoot as Soldier, all of that stuff comes into play.
Yeah.
And they're gonna fucking know. They're gonna know right off the bat. And it's, I don't know, it's a very situational, thing when it comes to, and I guess too, it also kinda, sorta depends on the person you're talking to. Kinda, because some people are like, oh, well, you know, if you main a specialist, whatever, it's not that bad, and then some people will just shit on you all day long. But again, it depends on who is actually saying what about what specialist and who's behind the monitor. Because I will admit, I've seen Pyro mains that have thousands of hours on Pyro alone, and they're
again, fucking shout out to Jedi Flaymaster, amazing Pyro, by the way. People
yeah,
like
exactly.
Wispy, Timo, fucking what's the EU Pyro name? Steven, is it? Steva Panda?
I think, yeah. And fuck, like Panda is, good lord, he's fucking good. But then you have people that, you know, even in the situations where you have an unfair advantage, even in the situations where you could kind of not wipe out their whole team but get a couple of really decent picks, people don't, they just don't, you know, like, I think the funniest thing to me is when, a free-to-play or a pay-to-play that's not been a pay-to-play for, you know, like 10 years, immediately counters somebody in a pub who has at least 5 to 6 digits in the hours.
And then they, like, instantly assume that they're better.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, well, okay, you know, you fucking have, like, 30,000 hours, and I've got, like, you know, 30, the end. I'm better than you.
One kill is not, like, textbook experience.
Oh, by no means is a textbook experience. It's just meaning that, and I think, too, it's encouraging, not to be cocky, I don't mean to be cocky, but for new players to get those kills on the people that are better than them, I guess? Not as people, but at the game itself, because then the player, the new player might think like, oh, okay, well, I did this and it worked against this guy, so speaking on terms of in a pub or wherever else, is that going to work again? And then if it does work, if they happen to stumble upon a strategy, there you go. They've immediately figured out something that works.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't give them an unfair advantage. That just breaks them away from the free-to-plays that their computers just can't run the game. So they have a very good excuse for being terrible.
Yeah, that kind of stuff in general, and like that's kind of like why I like going away from the meta a lot sometimes. This kind of game is the one that just sort of encourages finding your own style. Like the fact that there's 3 different weapon slots and you can use whatever the fuck you want. It's all about finding your own style. Like, I mean, look at me, Scout. I main backscatter. That's fucking not meta. I'm disappointed. I main the back.
I'm sorry?
I main... Fuck! Stop it! Stop it! That high ground is mine!
Fine.
Piss off! Anyway. But yeah, like, closing statement. Basically, casual comp divide is not something all that... Ooh, nice strip out of that. It's not something all that surprising. Could just have a nice flashy finisher. There we go.
There you go.
But yeah, casual comp divide. It's probably something that's never gonna die. But really, we urge you to at least hear the opinions of the other side and not be so, I don't know,
close-minded.
Yeah, and if there's gonna be a commenter that says like, you know, aren't you kind of being the same way? Well, we're just calling out that attitude. It's really the same as that attitude, is it? It's like. It's sort of like saying, oh, well, you're being a bigot. Does that make me a bigot for calling you a bigot?
No. No. Well, and an even bigger example, too, is like if somebody says something, which I know this is kind of what you just said, but this is to explain it a lot easier. If somebody says something racist about somebody whose skin is darker, and then somebody else is like, that's racist, that doesn't make them racist.
Yeah.
You know, like,
the political.
Yeah, no, but that I won't go any further other than that, but...
Yeah, well, okay, that's, we've basically talked about everything on the agenda. That's all from me for now, Sexy Compatriots. Good to be back, joined by AudeoBeem. You'll see him more, definitely.
Yay.
That's not a good closing. Go away. Fucking goddamn it. Just say bye already. God.
Wait, hold on. Just. I know it's awkward. I know. Bye.
Bye.